There is one thing you are almost certainly not doing every day that would do more for your prostate health than any medication your doctor has ever prescribed. And I want to be clear up front. I am not talking about a supplement. I am not talking about surgery. I am not talking about anything that costs money or requires a prescription. This is a habit, a set of simple, specific daily actions that the research now shows can meaningfully change what happens inside the prostate gland as you age. And the reason your doctor has probably never mentioned any of this is not because they don't care. It is because most physicians are trained to treat disease, not prevent it. Nobody sat them down in medical school and said, "Here is how you protect a man's prostate before the damage is done." So that is what I am doing today. I have been practicing urology for 11 years.
And in that time, the men I see in my clinic almost all share one pattern. By the time they get to me, they have been living with their symptoms for years. The weak stream, the urgency, waking up twice, 3 times a night. The erections that are not what they used to be. The exhaustion that no amount of sleep seems to fix. And when I ask them what they have done about it, most say the same thing. Nothing. Because their doctor told them it was just aging, or they were too embarrassed to bring it up, or they tried things that did not work and gave up. I want to tell you about a man named Dennis. He was 63 when he first came to see me. He had not slept more than 2 hours straight in over a year. He told me he had stopped booking flights because he was afraid of not making it to the bathroom in time. His wife had started sleeping in the guest room because his trips to the bathroom were waking her up every night. He sat across from me and said, "I feel like I'm disappearing." Dennis was not sick in the way most people think of sick. He had not been diagnosed with anything serious. He had simply never been told what was actually happening inside his body, or what to do about it. After he made the changes I am going to walk you through today, he was down to 1 nighttime trip within 8 weeks. He told me it was the first time in years he felt like himself. That is what this is about. I am going to walk you through 5 specific daily habits, backed by research not theory, that have a measurable effect on prostate health after 50. And I will tell you exactly how each one works at a biological level, because I want you to understand this, not just follow a list blindly. Before I get into all 5, I want to flag something. I have put together a separate, more detailed breakdown of the root cause mechanism that connects all of these habits. The underlying biological process that most men are never told about, and that explains why prostate problems and sexual health problems almost always arrive together. I have linked that video below this one so you can check that out in the description or pinned comment. Watch it after this one. So now let's get started here first. The first habit is one that almost nobody connects to prostate health: hydration. Specifically, drinking 16 to 20 ounces of water within the first 30 minutes of waking up, before coffee, before anything else. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Less water means fewer bathroom trips. I hear this constantly. Men tell me proudly that they have cut back on fluids to control their symptoms, and I always have to gently tell them the same thing. That strategy is making things worse. When you are dehydrated, urine becomes more concentrated, more acidic, more irritating to the bladder wall. An irritated bladder sends false signals. It tells you it is full when it is only half full. That is why so many men find themselves standing at the toilet at 2 a.m. passing almost nothing. The urge was real. The volume was not. Starting your morning with immediate rehydration dilutes urine, reduces bladder irritability, and restores circulation to pelvic tissue, including the prostate. It costs nothing and it takes 30 seconds. The second habit is fermented foods. Plain yogurt, kefir, kimchi, sauerkraut, miso. 1 to 2 servings per day of live, unpasteurized fermented foods. The gut-prostate connection is one of the most underappreciated areas in urology right now. We now know that the gut microbiome directly influences inflammatory markers in the bloodstream. And chronic low-grade inflammation is one of the primary drivers of benign prostatic hyperplasia, the cell overgrowth that causes most of the symptoms men deal with after 50. A disrupted microbiome produces more inflammatory cytokines. Those cytokines circulate through the bloodstream and create an inflammatory environment in the prostate. Restoring the microbiome with daily fermented food intake directly reduces that inflammatory load. One of my patients, a 58-year-old named Raymond, had been dealing with urgency and a weak stream for 3 years. He added 1 serving of plain kefir every morning. Within 6 weeks, he told me his urgency had dropped noticeably and he was sleeping through the night more often than not. He had changed nothing else. The third habit is daily walking. Not jogging, not the gym. Walking. 30 to 45 minutes of continuous moderate intensity walking, 5 days a week. Ideally in the morning, ideally before your first meal. Here is why this matters more for prostate health than almost anything else on this list. Walking at a sustained moderate pace drives something called nitric oxide production. Nitric oxide is a molecule your blood vessel walls produce when subjected to consistent, moderate blood flow demand. Think of it as your body's natural pipe cleaner. When nitric oxide levels are healthy, blood vessels stay relaxed and open. Blood flows freely to every organ in your lower body, including the prostate and the tissue responsible for erections. When nitric oxide production drops, which happens with age, with sedentary behavior, with poor diet, blood flow to the prostate becomes sluggish. The gland starts operating under chronic oxygen deprivation. Waste products accumulate. Tissue becomes inflamed. Cells begin to behave abnormally. And that is when the symptoms start. This is the exact mechanism I break down in detail in the video linked below. The research behind it is genuinely surprising, and it explains why so many men find their prostate symptoms and their erection quality decline at exactly the same time. Worth watching after this. The fourth habit is cruciferous vegetables. Broccoli, broccoli sprouts, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts. 1 to 2 servings per day, lightly steamed, never overcooked. The active compound here is sulforaphane. Sulforaphane activates a cellular defense pathway, specifically the NRF2 pathway, responsible for DNA repair and suppression of abnormal cell growth. Prostate tissue accumulates oxidative damage over time, and sulforaphane directly counteracts that damage at the cellular level. Research published in Cancer Prevention Research shows that men with consistently high cruciferous vegetable intake have measurably lower rates of prostate inflammation and cellular abnormality. And here is the detail most people miss. Pair your broccoli with a small amount of raw mustard seed powder or raw radish. This dramatically increases sulforaphane bioavailability because it provides the enzyme myrosinase that converts the precursor compound into its active form. Most men cooking broccoli alone are getting a fraction of the benefit they could be getting. The fifth habit is the one that ties everything else together. Sleep. 7.5 to 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep per night in a cool, dark room. I know what you are thinking. Broken sleep is the symptom. How can fixing sleep also be the solution? It is a fair question. But here is what the research shows. Deep sleep is when your body produces the majority of its melatonin. And melatonin is not just a sleep hormone. It is one of the most potent antioxidants the human body produces. It directly suppresses inflammatory activity in prostate tissue, supports testosterone regulation, and critically, it supports the overnight repair of nitric oxide signaling in your blood vessel walls. When you consistently get less than 7 hours, melatonin production is truncated. The overnight repair cycle does not complete. Nitric oxide synthesis is impaired the following day. The inflammatory environment in the prostate never fully resets. This is why so many men find their sleep problems and their prostate problems feel like they are getting worse at the same time. Because they are. One drives the other in both directions. This connects directly to a study published in 2023 out of Fukushima Medical University in Japan that looked at the cellular drivers of prostatic enlargement at a molecular level. What the researchers found was that restricted blood flow to the prostate, driven specifically by impaired nitric oxide signaling, was the primary trigger for the cellular proliferation that causes glandular enlargement. Not aging in isolation, not genetics in isolation. Impaired blood flow, sustained over time. That single mechanism explains the majority of what men experience as their prostate gets older. And it is exactly what I break down in the video linked below. What that study found, what it means for men over 50, and what the full protocol looks like when you address this root cause directly. That video is probably the most important thing I have put out on this channel. Watch it after this one. Let me tell you about one more patient before the practical summary. His name was Carl. He was 66, a retired engineer, methodical and skeptical. He came to me because he had been waking up 4 times a night and his urologist had suggested medication. He did not want medication. He wanted to understand what was actually happening. I walked him through the same 5 habits. He implemented all of them within 2 weeks and tracked everything in a notebook. At his 6-week check-in, he told me nighttime trips had dropped from 4 to 1. Stream strength was noticeably better. He said, "I kept waiting for the catch. There was no catch." Carl's result was not unusual. It was typical of what happens when you address the underlying biology instead of chasing the symptoms. So here is the practical version of all 5 before you go. First, 16 to 20 ounces of water within 30 minutes of waking before anything else. Second, 1 to 2 servings of live fermented food daily. Yogurt, kefir, kimchi, or sauerkraut. Third, 30 to 45 minutes of continuous walking 5 days a week, ideally in the morning before your first meal. Fourth, 1 to 2 servings of lightly steamed cruciferous vegetables per day, paired with raw mustard seed powder for full sulforaphane effect. Fifth, 7.5 to 8 hours of sleep in a cool, dark room, protected as seriously as anything else in your health routine. Each of these works on its own, but they are not independent, they compound. The walking drives nitric oxide, the sleep repairs nitric oxide signaling overnight. The fermented foods reduce the inflammatory interference that suppresses nitric oxide production. The cruciferous vegetables protect the cellular environment that the improved blood flow is feeding. 5 parts of one system, and when you run that system consistently, the research shows measurable improvements in prostate volume, urinary flow, overnight waking frequency, and in men who address this early enough, erection quality. The symptoms most men are attributing to age, the weak stream, the 3 a.m. wake up, the erections that need more effort than they used to, these are not inevitable. They are the biological consequence of specific deficits that specific daily habits can address. You are not at the mercy of your age. You are at the mercy of your habits. Before you go, I want to make sure you actually watch the video I have linked below. I know I have mentioned it several times and I do not say that lightly. What most men over 50 are doing for their prostate is aimed at entirely the wrong target. That video explains the actual root cause, the mechanism that connects everything I talked about today, and what to do about it specifically. It is 8 minutes long. Watch it when you have time to focus and no distractions. I think it will be the most useful thing you watch this week. I will see you there.